All right, let's get into Friday feedback for the week. You can always email info@davidpakman.com. We will feature emails, YouTube comments, some Twitter replies, although we're kind of getting away from it, subreddit posts, TikTok comments, who knows? We start with the subreddit, and user James Brown's Hair asks, are progressives overestimating progressive support? Last three presidential elections have been the same cries of we need a true progressive to actually win. However, when progressives run in primaries, they lose. Even more puzzling is the way Trump ran against Kamala. You'd think she was a far leftist. If being a progressive is a winning strategy, wouldn't we see more winning? It's hard for me to believe that an electorate that voted for Trump is heavily concerned about policies, let alone progressive ones. It's even harder for me to believe the people who chose to sit out also care as much as progressives think they do. Two things can be true at the same time. And I've thought about this a lot, not only in the aftermath of this recent election, but previously. It can both be the case that the country is to the left of our elected officials, but to the right of the most progressive vision that we ever see represented publicly. I'll give you examples. On the issue, for example, of abortion, Americans overall are well to the left of the average member of the House or Senate. Members of the House or Senate, on average, overrepresent anti-abortion views. The real view of the average American is to the left of those by whom we are represented. However, you can find further left views on abortion that go beyond where the average American is. So I think that two things are going on. The system that is in place favors elected officials that are to the right of the country. Gerrymandering is one reason. Using divisive cultural issues to raise money is another reason, etc. At the same time, it is true that even though there are those who very loudly, the loud wokesters or the people who say it's completely fine for anyone, period, to participate in any sport on the men's or women's, no matter what. Like, you can find that, but that is not where most of the left is. It's not really even a big issue to most people. So I don't think the answer is a cartoonishly left-wing individual, but those folks don't have a chance to win anyway. So the concern about, imagine if we select someone that's crazy to the left. I've seen no evidence that Democratic primary voters would select such a person. So the debate isn't between what we've had and some extreme left-wing thing. It's a debate between what we've had and just sort of someone closer to social democracy, which is a form of capitalism that we see in Northern Europe. All right, so I hope I'm being clear about what I mean there. Okay, next message here. Maro Marix says, watching from Europe, Kamala did not lie enough. Orange Clown promised policies which cannot be implemented, but sounded attractive. I received several messages like this after the election. The idea is Trump promises whatever. Trump says whatever. We know he's not going to do it. We don't even know if he intends to do it. Why doesn't the left just start promising stuff? I think there are two reasons not to do it. Number one, I don't think it makes sense to stoop to their level. As I've said before, let's use their aggressiveness. Let's learn from how they don't do purity tests and exclude people. But on just making crap up deliberately, I'm not into that for moral reasons. But who cares about my morality? More importantly, I don't think it would work because for whatever reason, the right is much better at calling the left's policies implausible than we are at pointing out that their policies are completely impossible and unbelievable. So the real reason not to do it, whatever your morality or ethics are, is I just don't think it would work. Back to the subreddit, Emotional Ant says Kamala Harris should not run for the presidency again. Harris dropped out of the Democratic primary early on in 2020. She lost the presidential election in 2024 against a convicted felon. It would be selfish for her to try again when there are so many other good candidates in the Democratic Party. I like Harris and voted for her, but I will lose respect for her if she puts herself ahead of the country. In 2028, we need fresh faces. I agree. Listen, I don't think Kamala Harris is a bad candidate. I don't think Kamala Harris would have been a bad president. I think she would have been a good president, a better president than Trump's going to be. I met her. She was extraordinarily impressive and qualified, knowledgeable about a wide range of issues, able to think on her feet, etc. And then the campaign started, and the Kamala Harris that I met in DC a year ago was nowhere to be found. And I think to some degree, she's less good in formal settings. I think to some degree, it's the beginning of the campaign was much better than the middle and the end, and the consultants get in and the focus groups, and they get away from stuff that was working. There's a whole bunch of different reasons, but I tend to agree it's better now to move on to somebody else. It's not an age thing. I guess she would be, let's see, how old is she right now? She's 60. Okay, so she'd be 64. I mean, listen, it's not that she would be too old in 4 years. I just agree that there are lots of great people to look at and to move on to. And I agree, Harris should not run again in 2024. Cultal Aers says MAGA didn't turn on Musk. What the hell is Pakman talking about? The David Pakman Show, if you want to create division on your own cult, don't create division between others. Stick with your Pakman cult. Stop implying MAGA is divided. Cultal, I don't know what you're looking at, but MAGA is extraordinarily divided. MAGA is as divided as we have ever seen it. Laura Loomer and Musk and Trump and the Groypers and the anti-H-1B people and the pro-H-1B people, I'm not saying that this will make it so Trump can't do anything. We don't know. He hasn't even been sworn in yet. But it is absolutely the case that MAGA is as divided as it has ever been. If you can't see that, you just don't want to see what's in front of your face. Ruth Watson said on YouTube, he didn't win fairly nor legally. You know, I understand the frustration. I would rather, to some degree, be able to honestly tell myself, it's not that people chose MAGA over sanity. It's not that Harris really lost. He cheated. I would rather tell myself that because it would make me feel better about the candidate I supported, and it would make me feel better about the country. It's not that people fell for it again. He simply cheated. I just am unable to find evidence of that. I've looked. I've explored all of the claims that people wrote to me about, and I just can't find evidence that Trump won unfairly or illegally. And unless we want to end up being like them, I suggest we get it together on winning in 2026 and getting a good candidate in 2028. That's where my focus is. Ogre Scar says, I live in Texas. I fled from Christmas dinner when one of my relatives started talking about all of the great things a Trump administration would bring. The reason I left, setting personal issues aside, was because regardless of my arguments, Trump is perceived as some heroic figure who will save the world. Bottom line, the blunt skulls refuse to accept reality and are looking for a savior, think Trump is that savior, and are going to be sadly disappointed when they realize he is not. They will invariably blame Democrats for their problems because critical thinking is an alien concept to which they have never been exposed. Yeah, I mean, listen, this is basically the concern, which is Trump can't possibly do tariffs and bring prices down. Trump can't possibly do tax cuts for the rich and corporations and bring the deficit down. There's two choices, and I laid it out last week. Either Trump does all of this stuff and it goes poorly, or he abandons it. Either way, he's losing. Except, as Ogre Scar points out, critical thinking is an alien concept, and anything bad that happens, they will find some Democrat to blame it on. Now, you might say, well, Democrats don't control anything. Who else could they blame it on? The deep state, Soros, the Illuminati, someone over there on the grassy knoll. They're going to find someone else to blame. And so part of our difficult task for the next 2 and 4 years is going to be not allowing them to do that. They will be to blame for the things that they do. CBDB says, can someone tell me how exactly the MAGA right wing could possibly think an immigrant billionaire who bought his way into the presidency has the American working class's best interests in mind? Well, you know why? Because he's behind a Republican. When they claim that it's George Soros, older, wealthy immigrant, when it's his money, it's bad objectively. And his motivations are negative and selfish and self-centered and blah, 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 blah. But all of a sudden it's Elon who's dumping money in, beneficiary of government contracts, has all sorts of things he wants done to help his companies, Tesla, SpaceX, etc. Suddenly, they just say he just has the best interest of the people in mind. It's not about facts. The answer to how do they fall for it, it's because they want to. They don't want to think critically about what they are getting. A3 Renat says, unfortunately, Biden will be remembered simply as an interim president during the Trump years, simply a pause on Trumpism. Well, I hope that that's not true. But if it is, there was probably a lot of benefit to interrupting Trumpism for 4 years. We won't know until we're beyond Trump's presidency. We don't yet know. But if that was all Biden accomplished, it's probably still worthy. However, I think there's a lot more. Student loan forgiveness, getting us out of Afghanistan, CHIPS and Science Act, infrastructure bills, COVID vaccine distribution, changes with regard to pharmaceuticals and prescription drugs under Medicare. It's a very long list. Are these the sorts of things that in 100 years people will say, remember when Biden did CHIPS and science? No, maybe not. Maybe not. But the idea that he will be seen as a failed president, that I don't think. All right, we'll talk to everybody very soon. Bonus show coming up right after this. Sign up at joinpakman.com. Well, I wrote a book after a long journey and a ton of work. I am really thrilled with how it turned out, and I hope you'll read it. The book is called The Echo Machine, and in a nutshell, it looks at how American politics got so broken, who has already figured out solutions, and how we can try to fix it and stop the terror of Trump for the next 4 years. With Trump winning this election, The Echo Machine couldn't be more relevant, not only a warning about how we got here, but also about what might be coming and how to prevent the worst outcomes. We've got to stay engaged. We need a plan, and that's what the book is about. There's a belief out there that unless you have corporate media behind you, you can't have a successful political book launch, that it's not possible. I think we can prove that wrong. Order The Echo Machine today at davidpakman.com/echo on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, Kindle, anywhere that books, ebooks, and audiobooks are sold. You can also call any local bookstore and say, please order me The Echo Machine by David Pakman. Wherever you get the book, you'll get the free pre-order perks, including the signed book plate. Head to davidpakman.com/free book stuff after ordering.